Imagine waking up one day and realizing everything you've ever believed about yourself, every fear, every doubt, every fact ingrained since childhood, might have been planted there on purpose. You see the world going about its business, people rushing off to jobs they despise, scrolling through social media feeds that only confirm their anxieties, clinging to beliefs they never chose. And then you stumble across a voice, a quiet but insistent echo, telling you that you might be far more powerful than you've been led to believe. It sounds ludicrous at first. After all, you're surrounded by institutions and experts who say they know best, that you need them to survive. Yet that echo won't stop. It burrows into your mind and nags at you, whispering a dangerous suggestion. What if the entire system thrives on your ignorance of your own divinity? But before we dive deeper into the fascinating journey, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Bill Donahue, a name that, on the surface, might not ring a bell in many mainstream circles, offers a radical proposition that rattles the foundations of traditional religion, conventional psychology, and even modern social norms. He isn't just talking about positive thinking or a feel-good message. Instead, he's taking a sledgehammer to deeply entrenched ideas, standing at the intersection of faith and introspection, proclaiming with unwavering conviction that you possess a spark of godhood within you. The moment you hear that, your first instinct might be to recoil. It sounds heretical. It sounds proud. It sounds like exactly the sort of concept that countless preachers, teachers, and authority figures have labeled satanic or blasphemous. Yet Donahue doesn't flinch because he believes there's evidence buried right there in spiritual texts and in the depths of the human mind that no one in power wants you to see. Take a step back and consider how, over centuries, you've been told to worship a God out there. The language of Scripture across multiple faiths often sets the divine above and beyond your reach, creating an unbridgeable gap between the mortal and the holy. You're taught to humble yourself, to see your flaws, to consider yourself unworthy of direct communion with any cosmic authority. You need a mediator, be it a priest, an institution, or a long list of commandments you must follow to keep this external God pleased. Donahue, however, flips the entire script by pointing to lines you might have read dozens of times but never truly noticed. Phrases about the kingdom of God being within you or about inheriting a divine spark suddenly take on new meaning when read outside the traditional framework. Once you realize that these lines might not be metaphorical, you start to wonder, why wasn't I taught to explore that power in myself? The deeper question lurking underneath is the one no institution wants you to ask. If you are inherently divine, why would you need an external authority to manage your spiritual life? Why would you have to beg for favor or forgiveness from an outside source if that sacred energy is already entwined with your being? It's a direct threat to the entire control mechanism. Religions, especially large organized ones, have leveraged guilt and fear for centuries because they work so effectively. When you believe you're tainted, you keep coming back for redemption. When you think you're powerless, you keep lining up for someone else's solutions. Donahue's message disrupts that feedback loop by suggesting you can cut out the middleman altogether. You're not a miserable wretch at the mercy of some cosmic judge. You might be a fragment of the divine itself, temporarily blinded to your true nature. This battle for your mind isn't just confined to church pews and dusty hymnals. It seeps into modern culture, fueled by algorithms on social media that constantly funnel certain perspectives into your feed while suppressing others. Think about what goes viral: cat memes, superficial celebrity feuds, quick-fix self-help slogans that promise instant transformation without serious introspection. Rarely do you see front-page algorithms uplifting deep discussions about the hidden power of the human mind or the radical notion that you might hold a piece of the infinite within you. That's not to say it never happens, But these quieter voices often get buried under a barrage of sensational news and surface-level content. It's no accident. Whether driven by profit motives, political agendas, or sheer inertia, the system thrives on your engagement with trivialities rather than your engagement with your own subconscious. Enter the realm of the subconscious mind, a place modern psychology has long recognized as the seat of untold power and creativity, but also a space crowded with unresolved trauma, parental scripts, and societal conditioning. Carl Jung famously wrote about the shadow self and the undiscovered self, nudging us to realize that the things we bury beneath consciousness don't vanish. They distort everything we do from behind the scenes. Donahue latches onto Jung's insights, insisting that what religion brands as dangerous introspection is actually your path to freedom. In many religious communities, especially conservative ones, you hear warnings against looking inward because it tempts you away from worshipping an external god. You might also hear that focusing on the self is narcissistic, or the psychological trick the devil uses to lead you astray. Yet Donahue argues that this fear of introspection isn't about protecting you, it's about keeping you dependent. We live in an age where mental health is becoming less taboo, but that conversation often stays on the surface. We talk about mindfulness apps, quick therapy sessions, or positive vibes. Rarely do we dive headfirst into the possibility that your subconscious might be your portal to an inner divinity. It's more comfortable to treat the mind as a black box to be managed with medication or shallow breathing exercises rather than confronting the existential shock of discovering that your mind could be infinite. Donahue goes even further, suggesting that not only is your mind powerful, but it might literally shape your physical reality. When he tells stories of people manifesting illnesses because of deeply embedded guilt or shame, it sounds extreme. But consider how stress alone is linked to heart disease, immune dysfunction, and mental breakdowns. Now imagine what centuries of reinforcing you are nothing could do to the collective psyche. According to Donahue, it poisons you from within, robs you of vitality, and keeps you locked in a prison built from your own mental blocks. Some might call this conspiratorial, others might call it enlightened. Regardless of where you stand, it's hard to deny that fear and guilt have historically been potent tools of control. Fear of eternal punishment, fear of social isolation, or fear of stepping beyond the well-worn path can paralyze a person more effectively than any physical chains. Pair that with guilt over normal human desires, over natural impulses, over so-called flaws, and you've got a surefire way to keep people kneeling. Whole industries revolve around telling you how broken you are, from fix-me religious doctrines to glossy ads selling products to improve your life. The overarching message is always, you're not enough as you are. Donahue stands up against that idea, calling it the grand deception that's robbed humanity of its greatest asset, its self-knowledge. Tension rises when you acknowledge that this isn't just about religion. School curriculums often prioritize standardized tests and memorization over creative self-discovery, churning out students who know how to follow rules but not necessarily how to think outside them. Families, unintentionally or not, can pass down generational beliefs that cement your limitations before you're old enough to question them. Social structures reward conformity and punish outliers, labeling them as rebels, heretics, or just plain weird. Over time, these influences merge into one overarching narrative. Do not question the system. Do not trust your inner voice. Definitely do not entertain the notion that you could be something more than a tiny cog in a massive machine. When you see the pattern repeat from cradle to adulthood, you start to suspect it might not be a coincidence. So what happens if you decide to break that pattern? Donahue cautions that there's no turning back once you crack open the door to your own potential. Suppose you take up regular meditation, not as a trendy stress relief tactic, but as a raw, unfiltered expedition into the corridors of your subconscious. All the baggage you've avoided, memories, insecurities, hidden resentments might flood the surface. It can feel like you're dismantling the very identity you've spent a lifetime constructing. You might lose friends who preferred the version of you that played it safe. Certain family members might brand you as delusional or rebellious. And religious authorities? They'll label you a heretic or warn that you're dabbling in dangerous territory. Those reactions can be terrifying. Yet, according to Donahue, these are the necessary birth pangs of a new kind of existence, one in which you're no longer at the mercy of external dictates. In today's world, where social media cancellation looms over anyone who challenges dominant narratives, embracing your divine spark can make you a target. Modern-day figures who question mainstream ideologies often find themselves abruptly deplatformed or drowned out by waves of negative PR. Whether they're discussing holistic health alternatives, cryptic spiritual teachings, or taboo political opinions, the pattern is similar. Push too hard against the established order and watch as the gatekeepers respond. Donahue's claims, with their direct challenge to religious orthodoxy and societal expectations, fit right into this category of threatening ideas. Ironically, the more pushback these ideas receive, the more attention they garner from seekers who suspect there's a reason certain topics remain off-limits in polite conversation. This dynamic can be observed everywhere, from YouTube comment sections to mainstream news coverage. When someone steps forward with a radical message, be it about your own divinity, hidden history, or unorthodox science, they're either dismissed as quacks or vilified as orchestrators of some sinister plot. The drama itself can overshadow the content of their message, leaving the public caught in a swirl of rumor and speculation without ever absorbing the fundamental point. And here is where Donahue urges you to stand your ground. He insists that if you dig beneath the sensational headlines, behind the fear-mongering, there's a simple but life-altering truth. You are far more than you believe you are. By now, you might be wondering what practical impact all this could have on your day-to-day life. Maybe you're already juggling a stressful career, a complicated family situation, and a barrage of internet experts telling you how to live. Embracing your potential godhood can feel like a tall order when you're just trying to pay rent and keep your sanity intact. Yet Donahue and other like-minded thinkers argue that understanding your intrinsic power doesn't just help you spiritually, it reorients your entire approach to challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as punishments or random occurrences, you start recognizing them as mirrors that reflect back the beliefs you hold deep inside. Maybe that job that's draining you is a manifestation of a subconscious belief that you don't deserve fulfilling work. Perhaps the dysfunctional relationship you're in is fueled by unexamined guilt or shame you've carried since childhood. Digging up these roots isn't comfortable, but it's transformative. In a modern twist, we now have the internet, arguably the biggest double-edged sword in history. On one hand, it's flooded with trivial distractions designed to keep you from looking inward. On the other, it holds a treasury of alternative perspectives, hidden texts, and global connections that can spark life-changing epiphanies. Donahue's ideas have found a home in certain corners of this digital wilderness, where curious minds gather to challenge mainstream narratives. Here, away from the spotlight of megachurches and conventional academia, dialogues are popping up that weave together ancient spiritual wisdom, Jungian psychology, quantum physics, and the everyday experiences of people feeling trapped in ordinary lives. It's like discovering that the labyrinth you've been walking your entire life has a secret passage you never noticed. One click leads to another, and before you know it, you're questioning everything you thought was normal. Of course, skepticism is healthy. Accepting any radical idea without scrutiny can be just as disempowering as blindly following tradition. Donahue's challenge isn't believe me or else. It's look for yourself, test these ideas within your own mind, and see what you uncover. This is the polar opposite of dogma. Rather than dictating a set creed or moral code, Donahue encourages you to embark on a personal inner voyage, one that might involve journaling, dream analysis, or even quietly observing your own thoughts to see what surfaces. Such activities sound simple, but they can be profoundly unsettling when done with the seriousness of someone genuinely seeking truth. After all, you never know what hidden beliefs you might dredge up, beliefs that have shaped your entire reality without your permission. In line with Carl Jung's teachings, Donahue insists that this introspective work can catalyze a psychological and spiritual metamorphosis. Picture your subconscious as a vast, dark ocean. You've been floating on the surface, aware of the waves, your conscious thoughts, but unaware of the creatures lurking below, your deeper beliefs. Diving beneath the surface might reveal monstrous shadows, fear, guilt, grudges you didn't know you harbored. But it can also reveal dazzling treasures, talents, intuitions, and a profound sense of oneness with life. One of the more radical claims is that when you align with these newly discovered treasures, you can manifest physical changes in your life. You might find your health improving, your finances stabilizing, your relationships evolving, or your creative powers blossoming. It might sound magical, but Donahue would counter that it's simply you stepping into your rightful role as a creator rather than a passive participant. Still, freedom often comes at a steep price. The comfort of blaming others or waiting for a savior dissolves when you acknowledge your own creative capacity. If something goes wrong, you can't just look to the skies and lament, "Why me?" because the why might lie within you. This accountability is thrilling and terrifying. It means you carry the potential for immeasurable triumph, but also the responsibility for your setbacks. People who cling to old patterns might call this viewpoint arrogant. They'll say it's dangerous to trust your own inner compass over established rules or age-old doctrines. Yet Donahue contends that true danger lies in never questioning, never pushing past the boundaries drawn by those who thrive on your submission. What about the modern tendency to see conspiracies everywhere? In a world of viral misinformation, it's easy to dismiss Donahue's message as just another conspiracy theory. But conspiracies imply hidden groups with secret agendas. Here, Donahue is talking about something more insidious and widespread, a collective operating system that fosters doubt and compliance in everyone. It's not necessarily a shadowy cabal, but a cultural inertia passed down through millennia. Each generation perpetuates it, often without conscious awareness, until someone dares to ask if all this conditioning is truly necessary or real. That's where the real trouble begins. You can't unsee the cracks in the facade once you notice them. And once you do, you either continue forward into unfamiliar territory or try to revert to ignorance, which rarely works. The notion of self-godhood might even tie into the bigger modern phenomenon of influencer culture, where many people worship social media personalities who flaunt curated lifestyles as if they've unlocked some elusive secret. Donahue's perspective is a stark contrast. He doesn't promise a glamorous, easy solution. He's not peddling a 5-step plan to spiritual stardom. Instead, he outlines a rough road that often involves dismantling personal illusions and facing uncomfortable truths. If you're looking for a quick fix, you won't find it. But if you're ready to question the narrative that labels you less than, if you're prepared to explore the subtle hints left in ancient scriptures, psychological models, and your own instincts, you might discover a power you've sensed all along but never fully acknowledged. So where does this lead? If more people begin to see themselves as fragments of the divine, might the current societal structures unravel? Possibly. It wouldn't happen overnight, but imagine enough individuals refusing to be ruled by fear. Picture crowds of people who don't feel compelled to seek validation in external hierarchies, who embrace their unique gifts without waiting for permission. Traditional institutions, religious, governmental, educational, would face an existential crisis. Their authority rests on the premise that you need them more than they need you. Dissolve that premise and the entire dynamic shifts. Some foresee chaos, others foresee liberation. Donohue's vision leans toward the latter, a collective awakening that challenges everything we accept as normal, forcing each person to decide whether they prefer the security of old chains or the uncertainty of true freedom. But let's be honest, this is no fairy tale ending. Embracing your own divinity can feel isolating at times. You might find yourself standing at odds with people you love, risking alienation and confusion. Donohue is blunt about that fact. Growth can be lonely. Yet in the vacuum left by a crumbling old identity, you can build something authentic. You can connect with fellow explorers who resonate with the call to self-awareness. Together, you might form small communities, online or offline, that support this journey without demanding blind allegiance. That's the future Donohue envisions. Not a singular new religion, but a decentralized network of awakened individuals, each forging a path beyond fear-based paradigms. The real question then becomes, will you accept the invitation? It's one thing to listen to these ideas and find them intellectually stimulating, but it's another to integrate them into your life. Maybe you'll try meditating daily, not just to unwind, but to peer into the uncharted territories of your subconscious. Perhaps you'll journal about your core beliefs, questioning why you hold certain assumptions about success, failure, love, and morality. You could even decide to challenge any institution, religious or secular, that tells you who you must be, confronting them with the assertion that you can think, feel, and discover truth on your own terms. It won't be easy. The moment you step onto this path, the illusions you once found comforting start to crumble. But according to Donohue, that destruction is the sign of real progress. From here on, everything depends on your willingness to keep going when it gets tough. It's tempting to stop at the first sign of friction. Perhaps a close friend warns you that you're drifting into strange territory, or a religious leader shakes their head and says you're inviting dark influences by seeking the divine within. On social media, you might see snide comments labeling you naive or lost. All these reactions are attempts, some well-meaning, some fearful, to pull you back into the fold. Whether you decide to push through or surrender to the status quo is your crossroads moment, the point at which you either choose genuine freedom or revert to the comfort of captivity. In the end, Donohue won't be there to congratulate or admonish you. Neither will the pastors or teachers who once loomed large in your life. The paradox of self-discovery is that it's profoundly individual, yet it also connects you to a universal oneness. You stand alone in your personal growth, but in doing so, you become part of an invisible tapestry of awakened minds across centuries and continents. The conclusion is less about finality and more about a new beginning, an unending journey into the vast potential of your own psyche. By stepping into this path, you're essentially writing a fresh script for your life, one that discards the old act of guilt and fear in favor of curiosity, courage, and self-empowerment. So here we are, at the edge of something unknown and exhilarating. The voices of tradition, authority, and even your own doubts might be screaming at you to turn back. Perhaps, for a moment, you hesitate, reflecting on the comfort you might be giving up. But then you recall Donohue's simple yet world-shattering question. If the spark of the divine has been inside you all along, what could you possibly lose by exploring it? If you're honest with yourself, the only real risk is losing the illusions that kept you small. Everything else, meaning, purpose, spiritual connection, stands to be gained in ways you never imagined. The era we live in offers more distractions than any time in history. It also offers unprecedented access to information and perspectives that once lay hidden in dusty archives or whispered among secret initiates. With a single search or a chance comment, you can stumble into territories that crack open your worldview. Donohue's message is exactly that, a crack in the wall, a glimpse into a landscape that defies the limits imposed by a fearful, controlling system. Whether you step through or walk away is up to you. But one thing is clear, Once you hear the call to remember who you truly are, it echoes in your mind forever. And deep down, you might suspect that this echo is the key you've been missing all along. It won't vanish until you've either answered it or drowned it out with the noise of the world. The choice and the power belong to you alone.